Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's HR meeting. First of all, housekeeping. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the side of the room. Exit through reception and we'll meet in War Memorial Park. Tonight's meeting is being webcast, so please make sure your phones are turned to silent or switched off. And they will be available on YouTube after the meeting. And right, I think that's all housekeeping. So apologies for absence and substitutions. We've heard from Councillor Katecha. He sends his apologies, and Councillor Durrant. Are there any other apologies? Don't think so. And number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? No. And so number 3, the appointment of a vice chair. Do we have any nominations? I have heard from Councillor Durrant, who would like to nominate himself. If there is any seconder or any other nominations? No? Anyone happy to second him?
I'd like to nominate myself.
You'd like to nominate yourself as well? Right, do we have a seconder for either of the nominations of Councillor Durrant or Councillor Jenkins? Somebody?
I'm happy to second Councillor Jenkins as he's here.
Anybody else? No? Sorry, Councillor Court, I missed that. Did you second Councillor?
No, nothing further to add, thank you.
Okay. In that case, we should vote on the vice chair. Is everyone happy with Councillor Jenkins? Yeah? Confirm? And Councillor Durrant is not here, so Councillor Jenkins, welcome to vice chair. Are there any urgent matters? No. Right, on to number 5, the minutes of the last meeting on the 26th of February. I believe it's only Councillor Johnston and myself present that were actually at this meeting. Can you confirm that they are an accurate representation? Thank you. I will sign those later. And on to item number 6, the appointment to the Joint Consultative Committee. Right, the purpose of the Joint Consultative Committee provides an opportunity for councillors, unison staff, forum representatives and managers to solve problems and discuss ideas, issues, organisational changes, etc. openly and in the spirit of free exchange of views. The JCC is not a decision-making body. Its purpose is to influence and support the effective management of the Council's workforce. And the following list gives an example of the types of issues that might be discussed, which would be communication and engagement, working conditions, new ways of working, new or revised policies and procedures and how they operate, and staff well-being. There is more information here if anybody would like to read it. And we're looking for 3 people, please. And we have any volunteers? Can try. It doesn't. We will have to keep on asking. It does have to be done.
Sorry, not volunteering, but how often does it meet and when does it meet?
It usually meets twice a year, usually before the HR committee meeting, although there will likely be one short after this one, as obviously we couldn't have the meeting beforehand. So it's not particularly onerous in terms of meetings, only twice. Councillor Johnston, you're volunteering. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so we have, thank you. So Councillor Jenkins?
Could I take some time to consider it and review the information about it, and then I can make a
Yes,
decision?
of course, that would be
Thank you.
Thanks, and we'll email out to everybody afterwards as well. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor.
Likewise myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, the annual review of health and safety. This report provides an annual review of occupational safety and health for 2023 to 24, indicates the key proposed areas of focus for the annual health and safety action plan for 24 to 25. The contact officer is Sarah Cragg, and over to Paul Beaumont to introduce the report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The report that you have in front of you is an annual report of the health and safety performance at Basingstoke and Deane in 2023 to 24, and also to show you our vision for 2024 to 25. The annual report details the health and safety organisation here, the policies, the procedures, the training, amongst many skill levels that we provide, that we have in place to identify hazards and risks, and allows us to put in place mitigation measures to eliminate and or manage those significant risks proportionately. At Basingstoke and Deane, we have effective leadership of health and safety from senior managers. They listen, they engage with employees, they have an open door policy, they attend the 2 council health and safety committee meetings, they consult with the employees, they encourage and improve, they encourage improvement and innovation of safety measures here at the council. If I could coin an expression, Chair, they walk the walk. And everyone, I come from an industry before joining Basingstoke and Deane. Everyone has the right to finish work and go home safe and well every day. We're fortunate here that we don't have serious injuries at Basingstoke. We can't predict that for the future, but we hope, and we've got a pretty good guarantee of how we encourage our employees, how we work with our employees. We stress that they report near misses, accidents and property damage, even if no one's injured. If they've collided in a wall, if they've knocked into a bollard or a little fence, please, we want to know so that we can prevent future occurrences, because it may need some refresher training. And we also have external organisations that can help in that respect with us as well. I'd like to think that Basingstoke has a no-blame culture and that health and safety is seen as a solution here rather than obstruction to our working lives. We will not hesitate to challenge anyone who wishes to do otherwise. The ongoing commitment shown by the management team here, the trade union, Unison safety representatives and the 2 council committees is highly valued, and one that does really produce excellent results. But again, it's encouraging that culture. We want people to be free with information about health and safety. So, Chair, in the closing stages of this report, I've shown the council's projected annual plan. We would like the committee to note the contents of the report, to work alongside us while we will make that journey of continuous improvement. I'm on behalf of the committees, I'm happy to take questions from this committee and feedback to our colleagues.
Thank you very much, Paul. So, questions to officers. Councillor Golding.
Thank you. Obviously, looking at the report, the incidents going backwards, it's the parks and street scenes have quite a high number. I was struggling to see in 6.3, like which bullet points might be specifically aimed at that team and might be targeted as part of the priority to reduce their incidents in particular.
Actual fact, Councillor, the parks and street scene is the biggest commodity. That includes street cleansing, our general maintenance, parks and open spaces. So these are the people, male and female, that work in all weathers, different terrains. They work near the highway, on footpaths, verges. So we've concentrated a great deal with them in terms of risk assessments, evaluation, method work statements, which we showed to Unison as well. And we have Lantra trained manager that provides the land-based training skill set for them, chainsaws, rider-operated mowers, pedestrian mowers, tractors. So we focus on them a great deal. We consider them to be the hazardous group at the council, and we give them every opportunity to engage. I provide work at height training on ladders. We have external agents soon to come here to use mobile towers. And we do manual handling, because a lot of their issues often are slips, trips and falls, but equally musculoskeletal sprains on ankles when they are moving loads. Not necessarily heavy weights, because we have a lot of mechanisation here as well.
So is that stuff that's been done historically as well? Is there anything new that you're trying to do this coming year to reduce those further? Or is it kind of the risk is as managed as it can be because of the nature of the work?
In the 14 years I've been here, it's perpetual, and we're always looking to see different advances that we could use and methodologies. I represent the council in the county of Hampshire, where all local authorities join and share those experiences. Some of the e-learning packages that we have here are pretty good, if not maybe better than some. And their staff are quite receptive to use those as well. But we do have industry trainers that come along. So we do try immensely. I work with these lads a great deal.
And I think just to add to that, so to pick up on your point in terms of the points listed in 6.3, I think it's fair to say that almost all of those in some way are done within our kind of operations team. And I think what's really positive is there is a specific health and safety committee that just focuses on operations. So all of the accidents and incidents that happen in that area, that specific committee goes through every single accident and incident, talks about the background to it, how it occurred, what action has happened afterwards. And I suppose to answer your question in terms of new things, the team are always looking at how technology can either improve what we're doing in terms of limiting the risk even further, or if potentially there are some of the more hazardous activities that actually there's elements of technology could do instead. So looking at options such as remote control mowers. So again, some of them will be feasible and some of them won't, but actually the team are constantly looking at, are there better ways of doing what we're doing to try and limit the chances of those accidents. So I think, as Paul alluded to, we like to think it is fairly well managed, but we are continuing to look at if there's even more that we can do to limit that. But clearly the type of work and the terrain and the conditions they do it in, you're more predisposed to have more accidents and incidents. But that doesn't mean you kind of take that as read and we don't try and limit it even further, if you see what I mean.
Thank you. Paul?
And if I could just add that we have our tools and machinery normally on a 3-year replacement cycle. So the tool, we hardly ever need to replace bearings on a lot of our chainsaws and brush cutters and pole saws because we replace them every 3 years. And they're steel, so they're very good quality, Scandinavian. And when we then look at occupational health, of course, we're monitoring hand-arm vibration by the HSE questionnaire, by audiometry for testing of hearing. So we know that the tools are in good shape, they're used correctly.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any other questions? No? Does anybody want to debate what they've heard, or is everybody happy? Sorry, fantastic. Okay, well, it's good good to hear that it's not a static situation, always continuing to look for what we can do. And on that note, I propose that we note the report as presented to the committee as per the council's constitution. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
It's about the screens in reception. I was just wondering if we're taking any action to mitigate the reasons for needing the screens, so making sure that people who are attending the council offices aren't intoxicated or anything like that, and before there is a need for a screen to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe and whatnot. Is there anything that we can do in that area, do you think?
Do the large display screens? Yeah, not the VDU user screens.
The screens around reception that have just been put up in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
The face screens.
Yes, indeed. Certainly they're modern. We've had specifications, the use of risk assessments of them. To the best of my knowledge, it's not nanotechnology, but it's built on good performance, good colour registration, good definition.
I think we're at cross purposes here. I think Councillor Jenkins is referring to the clear screens around the reception. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkin. If I can just respond to that, absolutely. Obviously, we're very keen to try and make sure that we protect our staff. That's why we've introduced, excuse me, additional security presence within the office. That originally was only towards the end of the day, but now that security presence, oh, excuse me, frog's always in the throat at the wrong time, isn't it? Excuse me. That additional security presence is now throughout the day. Actually, even with that additional presence, we did still find there were unfortunately some incidents of both physical and verbal violent conduct towards our staff. And as much as we have signs and promotion around the fact that that kind of activity within council offices won't be tolerated, it was still felt that the risk that was being presented to the staff was too high, and that's why those additional screens were put in. Clearly those additional measures are still there and we continue to monitor the situation, but actually it was felt that that was the appropriate thing to do to make sure that our staff were fully protected, because they are, after all, coming to work to do their jobs to the best of their ability, and they have the right to do that safely and without a threat of physical or verbal violence.
My apologies for the confusion on my part. The protection screens were approved by the Violence at Work group as well here, which are members of staff and employees. And we felt that there is evidence, sadly, in local government and our political ministers as well, that people are becoming much more aggressive, more assertive, and the screens do provide just that little bit of barrier. But we've chosen perspex of a certain grade that's as good as safety glass, and we regularly clean as part of our hygiene programme as well.
Very quickly though.
As a follow-up, are we taking measures to make sure that we're mitigating the reasons for having those screens? So are we understanding why the people are getting upset? Are we understanding, what the causes of this rise in violent behaviour that's happening to the people that are working on reception?
Chair, we have implemented resilience training to our staff, so they can see the warning signs if somebody is becoming much more than excited. So we've got good skills to actually target and how we can then pass on to managers to help and support us.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Harvey?
I don't think it's really important to say that not just the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people who come into the council offices do not cause any issue for any staff at all, and it is the one or the two that have led to a situation where, one, we must support the staff, I think, in terms of the fact that they feel that this is a measure for them. It is also a measure that relates to why the security was introduced to begin with. Then we introduced, obviously, clear signage, clear indications that the behaviour wouldn't be tolerated. And we have had now to go to a situation where we have to have those screens. Would rather not. I think that's like everyone's fair position. You'd rather not, but our first duty is to protect the staff. I think the issues that are presenting are myriad. I don't think there's one particular type of issue relating to why that behaviour then presents itself. And on the occasions that it has presented itself, the police and other relevant authorities have been very helpful in dealing with the situations that have presented it, unfortunately for our staff. But you make an important point that actually reviewing it, being aware of it and why we have it is really important. We just need to know why and understand that. But the staff have got it because they've asked for that to be protected, and that's our first duty.
Thank you. Right, and I will be suggesting we note the report now as presented to the committee. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 8, the Pay and Benefits Review Update. This report provides an update on the progress of the Council's Pay and Benefits Review since the previous HR Committee on 26th of February 24, when the progress of the review was discussed. Again, the contact officer is Sarah Cragg and Louise Stoner is introducing the report. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an interim update on Phase 2 of the Pay and Benefits Review. Section 1.3 clearly steps out the items that are in scope of the review, which include salaries for apprenticeship roles, business mileage rate and essential users, overtime, standby and call-out payments and arrangements across the council for working outside of standard hours. Also included is any other payments received outside of basic pay and a contractual review tendering process for the council's benefits of the council benefits providers. So a bit of a background to the Pay and Benefits Review. The rationale for the council embarking on a Pay and Benefits Review is clearly set out in sections 2.1 of the report. So it really kind of gives that overview of why the council decided to embark on the Pay and Benefits Review. So work is now progressing on Phase 2 of the review and each of the component areas. The outcome of Phase 2 will necessitate changes to the council's pay policy statement. So by way of introduction, with regards to apprentice pay, it has been reviewed and benchmarked against other local councils and local employers to ensure we can attract applicants of all ages into apprenticeship roles. A review of the payments outside of basic salary. We need to ensure that payments are consistent across the council and take account of public and private sector employers. And we're also looking at introducing a formal standby and call-out policy and payments scheme, which will be subject to consultation. The essential user allowance and business mileage. We're currently reviewing employees who are in receipt of an essential user allowance for this role and in additional mileage claimed over a 12-month period. Proposed changes to the scheme and mileage rates will be subject to a consultation, which we're proposing to take place before the end of 2024. The changes will also reflect up-to-date HMRC rules and any potential climate impacts in line with the council's declared climate emergency. And then finally, the contractual review tendering process. We're currently working with the council's procurement team. We want to ensure that we're able to provide competitive benefits at the best price. The review of these benefits includes a review of our healthcare cash plan scheme, the online discount platform named Be Rewarded, and the car leasing scheme. Current work is currently ongoing in relation to this. I welcome any questions arising from this report.
Are there any questions? Yep, Councillor Golding.
I have a mini comment, and I admit it's not a question, just as a note really, as somebody who's new to the committee, under background papers it would have been really helpful to have a link to like the original plan for the review. in terms of this was what we were planning to do, because maybe I've spent too long on scrutiny committees, but it's always really nice to double check that you're doing what you said you'd do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's noted, and that would be something we could put into further reports just as way of background for that. Thank you.
That's a good point, yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions? And is there any debate arising from there? I don't think there's going to be. Right, and as it says, this is for information only. We are not required to make a decision. And so I move that once again we note the report on the progress of phase 2 of the pay and benefits review. Is everybody agreed? Thank you. Right, on to item number 9, HR operations and workforce information update. This report sets out key people indicators and management information at the end of 23-24, as well as question 1, April to June 24, and makes comparisons with previous year's performance where applicable. The contact officer, Sarah Cragg, and Sarah is going to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. So, as per the Constitution, this committee receives a twice yearly report on key people indicators and management information. So I'm sure members of the committee will note there's a huge amount of detail in the report. So I'm just going to go through at a very high level, and then obviously more than happy to take any questions at the end. So starting with section 3, which is our workforce demographics, you'll see as per the detail in the report, these are largely unchanged. So fairly equal in terms of our gender split within our current workforce, and a largely unchanged age profile, which mirrors the age profile within the borough as per the most recent census. We have had a slight increase in the number of no values, so data that hasn't been reported for ethnicity background. So we are on top of that straight away, and we've been promoting to staff for them to review and complete or amend their demographic information on the council's HR ERP system, because it's really important that we have all this information about our staff so that we can make sure our policies, processes and approaches are really in line with making sure that our workforce is as representative as it can be of our local community that we serve. We're also largely unchanged in terms of the number of staff declaring a disability between the end of the 23-24 year and Q1, although it is important to note that there has been an overall increase in the data held in this area from the previous year. So again, those encouragements to staff to make sure that they report that information, even if they choose not to declare, but that's a positive step they've taken rather than just having no data held. In terms of section 4, which is our establishment and turnover, you'll note from the report there's an increase in both headcount and turnover in the 23-24 year. So headcount increased by 59 and the FTE by just over 60 from the previous year. And again, there's been another smaller increase within the first quarter of this current financial year. So we've also seen alongside that a reduction in total and voluntary turnover during the 23-24 full year compared with the previous year. And the graph in section 4.3 shows those broader trends over time and really the impact of those COVID years on that staff turnover. Leaver rates within the report are tracked by reason, by business unit, by length of service and grade, which for grade obviously includes the 2 sets of data due to the change of grading system as a result of the pay and benefits review that happened partway through the last full financial year. I think it's really important to note, for example, in the figures by business unit, it shows, because of some of the small numbers that we're working with, how a very small number can create some large swings in percentages. So it's really useful for all of these data sets to make sure we view them in the context of the overall council population within each of those categories, just so we have that balanced view. In terms of sickness absence, that remained slightly above target during the 23-24 full year, although as you'll note from the report, that continued to reduce from the previous 2 years, and we were slightly below target for quarter 1 of this year, with higher levels of short-term than long-term sickness across that 23-24 year. You'll also note across that full year that the main reason for sickness absence remained anxiety, stress and depression, with musculoskeletal and cough, cold and flu being the next highest reasons. And I'll talk shortly about the council's approach to the health and wellbeing of staff. In terms of recruitment and quality monitoring, again, there's some really rich data in there in terms of the demographic data that we collect for all of our applicants, and that's also collected and reviewed to enable us to do that ongoing assessment of the number of applicants and their demographic profile against our current workforce profile. Again, all of that is designed to help us ensure and work towards making sure that our current workforce is as diverse as possible. In terms of staff health and wellbeing, again, the report sets out a continuous range of health and wellbeing activities that we offer and promote amongst staff, as well as our support mechanisms. So particular things that have happened since we last discussed this HR committee, a round of on-site health checks available for staff. We've had some social quiz and rounders events and coffee mornings, both in our civic offices and in our operational depots at the end of September. And some key campaigns for the rest of this year, including one around CPR and Restart Your Heart, and a culture celebration day that's also planned. These specific events are, of course, in addition to our ongoing support through mechanisms such as our Employee Assistance Programme, which offers a range of advice on everything from health to debt to legal advice, and they also offer telephone counselling. In addition to that, we also offer face-to-face counselling for staff and our occupational health service that again can be actively involved in supporting staff and managers in making sure that staff are well when they're at work. In terms of our learning and development activity, we are continuing to focus on apprenticeships, both as apprenticeship roles as a route into the organisation, of which we had 10 at the time of writing the report, but also as a really important way for us to upskill staff. So we had 7 current staff undertaking apprenticeships at the time of writing the report. And that's just one of the aspects of training and development that we offer to staff, and that's in addition to a range of other things such as undertaking professional qualifications. And as highlighted in the report, the Council also continues to support with employability work across the borough, including hosting work experience placements within the Council. Last but not least, in terms of our organisational development activity, so we had 2 really successful rounds of workshops with a range of staff from across the organisation to produce a set of draft values. These were developed, reviewed and refined, and the visual design for these final values is currently being developed. In addition to that, we've got some really exciting ongoing work looking at our recruitment processes across the Council, which will both incorporate these new values and also look at how best we can use things such as social media and networking sites to promote the Council as an employer of choice, both within the local community and beyond. Appreciate that was a bit of a canter through, but as I say, there's quite a lot in the report, but I'm more than happy to take questions on any of that or any other bits that you want to explore a little bit more.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions? No? Well, fantastic. Does anybody want to discuss or debate it at all? Great. And again, this report is for information. There is no decision required. So I move that we note the report as presented. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you. Okay, so on to agenda item number 10, employment termination costs 23 to 24. This annual statement provides information to the committee about the cost of redundancies, early retirements and settlement agreements, previously known as compromise agreements, that have been paid during the last complete financial year. And again, Sarah to introduce the report. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. So as set out in the Council's constitution, this committee receives an annual report on the cost of redundancies, early retirements and settlement agreements that have been paid during the last complete financial year. All of these are made in accordance with the Council's pay policy statement, constitution and financial regulations. So the Council paid termination costs totalling £101,537.71 in 2023-24. This is a reduction from the previous year where the figure was £278,804. So the total for 2023-24 was comprised of just under 32,500 in redundancy costs, just under 30,000 related to pylon, which is pay in lieu of notice payments. There were 0 related to early retirement costs and just over 42,000 related to termination payments. All of these are as set out in the report, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that anyone has in relation to that.
Does anybody have any questions for the officers? No? Anybody wish to debate it? No, thank you. Again, the recommendation is that we note the report as presented. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you very much. And on to item number 11. Just checking yet. The updated, the updated human resources policies. The purpose of the report is to review and approve the updated capability policy, whistleblowing policy and redundancy handling policy. Contact officer is Sarah Cragg and Louise Stoner is to introduce the report. Over to you, Louise. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So constitutionally, the committee are responsible for a set of policies that have a significant impact on staff and or costs to the council, and this is outlined in section 2.1 of the report. We're requesting that this evening's committees review and approve the minor amendments that have been made to the capability policy, the whistleblowing policy and the redundancy handling policy. All of the policies and the amendments are in the table on starting from section 3.2, and we've also attached all of the policies with the track changes that are under review tonight. HR policies are reviewed on an ongoing basis, and policies may be reviewed at more regular intervals due to new ways of working, statutory changes in employment law, procedures or process changes. Minor reviews have been made to these policies, which are outlined in the report, and the proposed revisions to these policies have been discussed with local representatives of the council's recognised trade union Unison. So the capability policy, the purpose of this policy is to help employees whose performance has fallen below achieving an acceptable standard within a workable timescale. The emphasis of this policy is on encouragement, training and support to make the necessary improvements. Section 3.2 outlines the revisions that have been made to this policy. These include updating of job titles, providing further clarity on items or to bring in line with best practice. Section 7 of under 3.2, this helps to provide further clarity on the stages of the capability process, and we've also included some flow charts to help further aid further understanding of the process, which are on the bottom of the table of page 50. So that's for the capability policy. The second policy for consideration is the whistleblowing policy. The purpose of this policy constitutes whistleblowing and how whistleblowing concerns can be raised and how the council will respond. Section 4.2 sets out the revisions that have been made to this policy. And then the final policy is the redundancy handling policy, which is in section 5 of the report. The purpose of this policy is to provide further clarification and guidance in relation to measures for minimising or avoiding redundancies, declaring post-redundance and dealing with change. All revisions that we are proposing to make are clearly set out in section 5.2. Just to highlight that although minor revisions have been made to this policy due to employment law changes in April this year, section 5.2 provides clarity in relation to employees on maternity, adoption or shared parental leave, and that's in section 5 of the actual policy. I welcome any questions or comments relating to the three policies. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Councillor Golding.
I suspect this is just reflecting national policy, but on page 6 of the redundancy policy, which is the maternity bit, I was just wondering if there was a reason why there's no kind of shared parental leave consideration if the pregnancy is lost after 24 weeks, because that still feels like a very significant life event, even if you didn't carry the pregnancy.
Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Golding. Yeah, I absolutely recognise that obviously in those scenarios that's a very difficult situation for any employees to go through. So you're right, the policy as it stands does reflect the legislation in terms of, I guess, what the specifics are. But obviously with all of these, we would always endeavour to try and enable a member of staff to come back to their role wherever possible. This isn't a policy in terms of this section that's used very frequently. You know, we don't have huge numbers of staff who are at risk of redundancy. We don't have huge number of consultations with staff who are on maternity leave. But absolutely, although this sets out the legislation and it's right that it does, we would be looking at individual cases and always trying to make sure that we retain staff wherever possible, whatever the circumstances, but especially in those circumstances, and making sure that we offer all the support that we can to anyone who would be going through such a difficult event.
Are you happy there? Brilliant. Okay, are there any other questions relating to this? Right, well first of all, I would like to thank you very much for doing the comparison chart here. It does make it an awful lot easier to find the changes. So thank you. And other than that, I'd like to move that we note the report as presented. Is everybody happy with that? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you. Okay. And finally we're on to the item 12, the review of the work programme. And we are asked to note. Oh.
Sorry.
Sorry?
No. I've had some background communication with Tony, Councillor Darren, sorry, and it turns out that he would also quite like the vice chair position. So I don't know if it's possible to roll back my earlier. I would like to resign.
Bernie.
No, so I totally understand that. It's that I had been catching up with messages. I came straight from work, and so reading the messages from Tony about becoming vice chair, he was very interested in it, and I didn't realise that. And him not being well or having family issues to not be here tonight and stand up for himself, I put myself forward in his absence because I didn't realise that he wanted it. So I understand that it's been done properly and I've been voted in, but I understand that he also would prefer it, and because of that, I would resign and let him do it because I know he really wants it.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. It's a little unorthodox, but if you don't want the position, then I propose we have to revisit the nominations and voting process. I can't really see much other way around it. So, okay, so back very briefly to agenda item 3, the appointment of a vice chair. I understand that Councillor Durrant has nominated himself. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jenkins. And do we have any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Can we then hold a vote as to Councillor Durrant as the vice chair for the current municipal year? Everybody vote. I would prefer it a verbal vote to say aye or nay this time. Is everybody happy? Yes? Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Durrant is the vice chair. Thank you. Item 12, the review of the work programme. The committee is asked to note and review its work programme. Sarah Cragg to introduce the programme. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. So, as set out in the papers, we currently have 4 items due for the next committee, which is in March 25. So there'll be our standard twice yearly workforce update, which is all the HR data and operational information we previously discussed. The next set of staff policies, which will include looking at the agreement schedule for the policies moving forward, as our current agreed schedule does end in March, and then 2 additional papers which are always coming to the March committee. So one is our gender pay gap report, which comes to the committee prior to being published externally on the government site, and also the pay policy statement, which comes to HR committee prior to moving forward to full council for agreement, as is required in legislation. So they're currently the 4 items on the work programme.
Right, thank you, Sarah. Is everybody happy with that? No questions? No other suggestions? No? In that case, we'll fill out the work programme. Yeah. I think that's it then. So on to item number 13. There are no exclusions of press and public. I don't think there are any confidential items to be discussed. So I propose that the meeting is closed. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Bye. And note the time is 19:17.